what is the best revenge you personally have ever gotten that you can admit to?
Well, it was based on probable cause, so I don't think I'll get arrested, probably. So the ex that inspired this whole series is a fucking idiot and a horrible person. Sorry, can I swear on this?
Yeah, please.
Okay, I'll,
It
I'll try
it
to I'll
needs
try to
to
keep it
be
in check.
true. It needs to be your truth.
Thank you so much. So a couple things. So he was an idiot and he was a Republican because I was very naive and I was like, the only way to heal this country is if we don't hate people automatically for their political beliefs. Turns out if you vote for somebody who doesn't care about other people's humanity, you probably don't either. Lesson learned. So he was very proud of the number of firearms he owned, not all of which were registered. And he also did his own taxes, and he's an idiot. So I may or may not have reported him to the ATF for possession of illegal firearms, as well as the IRS for tax evasion, because for sure he did not pay all of the taxes that were owed. And I love that one because they don't investigate all of those crimes, all of those filings, and you can report anonymously. And so, like, I like to think that if he does go to jail or get hit with very heavy fines in the tens of thousands of dollars, that's God's work, not mine. So I have a clear conscience about it.
Okay. Do you believe in reincarnation
Yes.
and karma?
Yes.
Okay, so that's where we are with this. But the concept of revenge is still just like uniquely human. And for my listeners, you are known as the lawyer who built a following by telling people not to do what she's suggesting before delivering some of the best revenge ideas on or off the internet ever. And I should add that you always preface these revenge ideas with, this is not legal advice. My favorite so far was a simple one where you said that if someone cheats on you, then you should unscrew their shower heads, stick a bunch of Jolly Ranchers in there, and then leave so that he can feel sticky and gross like the gross person that he is. I love it because it's also got a little bit of whimsy. And what's
Mhm.
what's revenge without a little whimsy? Is revenge a dish best served cold, or just with a side of probable cause to avoid legal action? Have you ever considered all the legal ways that you can obtain justice without having to get your hands too messy? So has Ishpal Sidhu, the brilliant legal mind and comedian behind the hit social media series called What the Ish. After a relationship so toxic it actually sent her into a tailspin, this bright attorney felt so helpless that she took to social media just to share brilliant and hilarious ways in which you can exact revenge, for example, on a cheater, without getting yourself arrested. On today's podcast, we're talking about her innate sense of justice, how unsatisfying the practice of the law has been for her, and the ways in which the little internet series she started to help others awoke her to the mission she was probably made for. From her Sikh heritage to comedy as medicine to what's next for her, Ishpal has a lot more insight into the power of the urge for revenge than her hilarious reels reveal. And while she is here for the fight and the healing and the search for justice, after all that she has learned, she's actually not so sure that revenge is in fact ever the actual answer. How does an attorney focused on civil litigation and white collar criminal defense become a champion for revenge?
Interesting question. So this man effectively destroyed me in many ways. And looking back, I noticed that he framed these things in deceptive ways, but kind of had a pattern of doing that to many people and has
Mm.
never faced any consequences. So I felt very powerless and very hopeless. And I was in so much pain that I was like, this man ruined my life. And like, there's no way to like balance the scales. So I was like Googling online,
Mm.
what is like revenge you can get? What is something I can do to like take the power back? Like it was a desire to feel some sort of control over my situation.
Right.
And the whole internet was like, have a glow up, live a good life. Like, and I was like, I'm not there yet. I mean, I was truly manic at this point, just with like pain and betrayal and heartbreak. And then I got fixated on the idea of like suing him into poverty because I'm a lawyer. And so it would cost me nothing and it would cost him a lot. And I was like, oh, I'll quit my job and dedicate my life to this, truly. Like I don't care. So I would like go to bed thinking about like opening statements, depositions I could write, like deposing all of his ex-girlfriends, to, like get on the record what a piece of shit he was
That's
and
a
making him pay
pattern.
for it.
It's a pattern, right? Context. How long did you date, or you weren't married, right?
No.
How long did you date?
So we were together for like a year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't take long to ruin someone's life. And it was really, I was talking to a friend after it all went down, and she was like, this sounds really toxic. It sounds like he was trying to like hurt you on purpose. Um, because at the end, I kept trying to break up with him and he wouldn't let me.
Yeah, they do that.
And then, but he was also scrambling to like find a replacement because usually
Uh,
they have one locked in before the
Always.
discard, if you're familiar with that cycle of abuse.
And the overlap is the hallmark of the narcissist because
Uh,
they cannot be alone. If you decide not to stay, they'll rewrite the story and say they left you or say that they moved on or whatever it is. Meanwhile, you were just trying to run away and they were like, no.
yeah. And so he was rubbing my face in all of the dates he was going on, even though I was trying to leave.
Right.
Um, and anytime I would get upset, he would just get very angry at me. And so I would just like be in a trauma response of fawning, of like, let me be very nice to like stay safe. And he was constantly like, take as much time as you need. We're always going to be friends, da 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 da. And then he started seeing someone new who was unsurprisingly inappropriately young and rubbed that one in my face too. And then one day, after like months of me like, I can't do this anymore, and him being like, you're so important to me, he was like, oh, I actually don't have time for your friendship anymore, but then still tried to keep me in his life. And it just got to the point where it was so painful that I was like, I will truly go crazy and end myself if this keeps going on. And then I told him I needed another break. I just need you to like block my number for a little bit, because I knew I couldn't block his because I would just unblock it. And all the other times he'd be like, well, how am I going to get in contact with you if you want to talk to me again? So we'd like leave some sort of channel open. And that time he was just like, okay, I hope you feel better soon. And then he blocked my number and we never spoke again.
Obviously, I don't have all the context, but there's something so uniquely cruel about refusing to allow someone to kindly exit.
Mm-hmm.
When I've looked back over all my breakups, I can actually draw a direct line between men who were men of character and how they let me leave, how they recognized the attempt to exit gracefully versus the lack of character and their massive temper tantrums when I left, right?
Yeah.
And I think the ugliest part of the cruelty is they could have let you exit gracefully, but instead they made it seem like they couldn't live without you in a way to hurt you on your way out. It seems premeditated, and therefore the desire for revenge. I need to point out some of these things, some of your revenge ideas. Revenge ideas from a lawyer that won't get you arrested, right?
Probably.
One of them, probably. One of them was, if he cheats, leave a note under his windshield saying, I'm pregnant, please call me, without a name, and then leave.
Yeah.
I mean, that is just like chef's kiss, because
Thank you.
Then you're going to find out even more, and chances are you could find out more. If he's gross people do more than one gross thing generally. Yeah. So now he's in a pool of his own disgustingness. Then the other one I really liked was blue cheese dressing under the bed because it will grow mold. The best one was this, because it really shows your intellectual range, right? Like, this is how I know you're a lawyer, is you said, go to his apartment, unplug his fridge, turn all the temperature knobs all the way up, and then unplug it so that when he goes home, all of his food will rot. And then after it rots, he'll put on the temperature knobs, and then he won't be able to twist it back to the right temperature, and it'll take him forever to figure it out. Right? That was even better than the autocorrect on his phone to change her name or his name from baby to daddy or Steve or mom. I mean, I was like, I hope at some point she decides to use her powers for good.
No, I mean, so I think I am using my powers for good because, again, like I don't recommend people do these things. And I mean that genuinely.
Yeah.
Because what I found is that, like, I've done these revenges and you get a high preparing for it. And then afterwards, like, usually if you're in a place where you're this hurt and want revenge, you're a good person and it doesn't feel good afterwards a lot
Yeah.
of the time. And I have found, and I think a lot of my followers have found that, like, the fantasy of it is where the catharsis comes,
Yeah.
of just being able to like imagine this like awful person, like who's made you feel powerless going through this and feeling similarly powerless, and then also getting to laugh and just think about it. I think that's where like the emotional relief comes in these situations. And also just to like know you're not the only one who feels that crazy, because when you go through these heartbreaks, people can exit relationships so gracefully and you were denied that opportunity and you feel insane and
Hmm.
so weak and like alone, and like for not even Reddit to have like validated what I was feeling, was crazy.
Hmm.
And so that's like why I created the series, is just so people feel less alone and less crazy and are like, yeah, men are fucking awful and they can make you someone you're not. And it's not that women are crazy, it's that men will make us this way, you know?
It's the refusal to take accountability that I think has become so rampant in our culture that
Yeah.
makes your entire series on revenge so powerful. So I dug into some of the science. What I found was, in general, there are studies showing revenge, like you said, does not make people feel better. So then the question is, why do we want it? Evolutionarily, there was some German psychologists, Fair and Gechter, I'm probably mispronouncing that, who said punishing others is a way to keep societies working smoothly. And evolution basically might have wired our brains to think revenge will make us feel good. So we're not crazy for thinking it's going to make us feel better. It's good that you're saying I don't recommend doing it. You're basically saying get the satisfaction out of thinking about the idea. It's almost cathartic. But another possibility they said in this study was that certain groups and certain societies that are lawless, like parts of Somalia or the Middle East, or places where tribal rule sways more heavily than the rule of law, people are more prone to seek revenge because there's no other way to obtain justice, because there is
Right.
no recourse to law. So that can apply to cultures without a functional legal system. But what I think is really interesting is we're living in the first time in the history of at least this culture where there is no recourse to community expectation either. No more norms of how anybody
Mm-hmm.
has to behave. The only
Mm-hmm.
norms we have left are see you in court.
Yeah.
The only way to get justice. And so I thought it was kind of beautiful that someone who's an attorney would be talking about revenge, because when first I thought, well, she's defending people who are accused of white collar crime. Maybe she's defending clients who sometimes she knows are just jerk faces, right? Maybe she's seeing the powerlessness of the people who are dealing with that injustice just because a legal system has some sort of a loophole that protects the client. And maybe that's where you got the satisfaction out of this. Is there any element of that for you?
Um, I think like as a lawyer, I have like a real like injustice sensitivity. And I
Mm-hmm.
think the idea of like the community norms of like there are people who can just run rampant through society without any sort of consequences is upsetting, and balancing the scales is really important to me, especially in a legal system that doesn't punish men for anything they do to women
Yeah.
largely.
Yeah.
So I don't think it necessarily had to do with my clients, because when I was doing white collar, a lot of them were like crypto clients, like well-meaning nerds who believed in this other world that like didn't understand that SEC compliance applied to them.
Yeah.
Um, so it was unfulfilling. So it was really helpful to me to like see people in my comments who were like, I was in a devastating breakup and I was like immobile with sadness. And this is the first thing that's made me laugh in weeks. And I've also like, I did stand up comedy for 6 years, and like comedy is really important to me and it's something that I want to do long term. So it's like kind of uh, a major emotional outlet for what I was going through. Because obviously I did not sue this man into poverty, and
Mm.
instead was like, had a little voice in my ear of like, make this a TikTok series. And I'd never
Yeah.
like done the internet before. So like, yeah, getting to do comedy, getting to like bring justice to women, and just have an emotional outlet to myself. Because as much as I would love for it to be some really clever thing that had to do with like the law, I was just like in a lot of pain. I was in
Mm.
a lot of pain and I really needed to get it out.
Well, and it is nice in a way because you want to believe that the things that go viral and the things that people get most excited about are coming from something really authentic rather than something curated that suddenly goes viral and makes someone famous. So that's nice to hear that it wasn't curated in that way because you are so professional about the way that you do it.
Oh, thank you.
What's the most frustrating thing about being a lawyer for you? Or is it just that you're not a divorce lawyer? Because I feel like you could go hard on behalf of your clients if you were a divorce lawyer. I
Yeah,
feel like you
I
go
do have
hard.
regrets about not being going into divorce. But also, I mean, divorce court, it can get really complicated, especially with child custody stuff, and it can get very sad. And so it's like if I did divorce court, I would like want to do it for like really high value people or like spicy cases. But you like don't get to pick your cases. And I think that's the other thing of like the fun cases, quote unquote, are the
Mm.
ones that are people who have a lot of money who can litigate this on like not as heavy issues.
Yeah.
And so you're not really helping anybody, you know?
Mm.
Like I haven't felt like I'm helping somebody in a really long time. And I feel like I've helped more people through these videos
Mm.
than I ever did being a lawyer, you know? Because when you're a lawyer, you're seeing people at the worst time in their life. And like, even if you're helping them, you're bleeding them dry at the same time. Like, and then it's
Right.
really just the partners who aren't really doing that much, just raking in the dough
Yeah.
off the backs of people having the worst day of their life. It doesn't sit well with me.
Where do you think your sense of justice comes from? Is it because you're sick?
I think that's definitely part of it. I
We have
definitely
to
think that's
tell
part of
people
it.
what that means. Not everybody watching this podcast
I
is
mean,
Indian and will understand.
here's the thing. My parents, they assimilated real hard. So everything I know about Sikhism, I know from Google and
Mhm.
just personal research.
Okay.
But like, I will say that like one of like the 5Ks of Sikhism is like the karpan, which is like a sword you wear, like a dagger you wear on your hip if you're baptized. And like, from my understanding, it's like you're not supposed to ever start a fight with it. You never use it to defend yourself. You only use it to defend other people. And I think that's something that's always been very deep. Oh, I got a little emotional. Like very deep in me of like ever since I was little of like I didn't necessarily care about things that people did wrong to me like in high school and stuff. I never really cared what happened to me because I could defend myself,
Yeah.
and I've always had like a very strong spirit in that sense. But like, if somebody did my friends wrong, I would fuck them up. You know what
Yeah,
I
you're
mean?
not going
Because
to
it's
stand
like,
by and let it happen.
yeah, because like, especially people who can't stand up or won't stand up for themselves, I'm very protective of them. I think that's just something that's like always been in me, you know? And they
Could
do
be
say people with
culture, could be
ADHD
you
have like,
personally, could be
hmm?
birth order, could be culture, could be you personally, could be birth order.
Yeah,
Are you big sister?
second of four.
Okay.
But my younger sister, she's like 14 months younger than me. I was always really protective of her and like gave her whatever she wanted. Like she used to get presents on my birthday because I like never wanted her to be sad. I care very much about other people and I want them all to be like safe and happy and like peaceful and free. And so when people come in and disrupt that, I get very protective.
What's ironic is you kind of have like an innate sense of being a protector. And then you went through something where you were not able to be protected from the way this person was behaving. And the only person that could have stopped it would have been him if he didn't do it, or you if you left sooner. But by the way, nobody ever does, right?
Yeah.
So it makes me think about there is a therapist I've had on the podcast. Her name is Esther Goldstein, and she's known as the trauma therapist's therapist. What she pointed out was there is something called the just world bias. And the just world bias basically says most people want to believe the world is just and that in general, good things happen to good people, right? And bad things don't happen to good people and that kind of stuff. And so when we are the victim of what is unjust, of harm, and we voice it, we are more likely, more and more likely, in a world that's getting scarier, we are more and more likely to have that reach for support and validation rejected. And
Mm.
when you have that reach for support, validation, or just being seen get rejected, it's a secondary drop. The first drop is they hurt you. The trauma comes from nobody helped you.
Mm.
That you voiced it and nobody helped you, right? So there's this secondary level that I think leads people to wanting revenge.
Mm.
And for you, was this Was this a situation where nobody believed you, or was this a situation where he was removed enough from you that you couldn't even get the satisfaction of everyone understanding what had happened?
So a couple things. Definitely he was so removed from everyone in my life that like, no one really understood the gravity of it. But also at that point I was so isolated. I had one friend left.
Really? In a
Um,
year? Wow.
yeah, I had my therapist and I had one friend who I had made towards the end of our relationship.
So it didn't
Um,
have the whole context of who you were before and all that.
no, like no, there was not a single person in my life who saw the light that I had before and saw it like leave my eyes. And then I mean, I had one friend who I'd known for a very long time who sort of saw it and just didn't say anything. Like she saw it coming and just never told me. And that felt like a real betrayal.
When you say saw it coming, she didn't like the dude? She didn't trust the dude? Or what
She
was
saw all of the red flags and just didn't ever point it. And I was like delusionally happy because that's often how you are at the beginning of an abusive thing.
yeah, yeah,
Because they like pretend to be your perfect person and they know how to like hit all your dopamine receptors. So you get addicted to them.
yeah.
And, I was doing on my birthday, I did a stand up show and I had a bunch of friends come and then we had a party afterwards. And her and my friend Darcy, like during the bit I had written about him, both sort of made eyes across the table of like, what is she doing? And my other friend, who I'm no longer friends with, looked back with a look of like, I tried to tell her, but she's not listening, but she never tried to tell me. But one of my closest friends saw that I was in a bad situation and saw the writing on the wall that I was too naive to see and just didn't tell me, which was hard.
I had a conversation like 10 years ago, a handful of women, and we'd known each other for a long time, like college friends, grad school friends, whatever. And somehow it came up about cheating, about finding out that your friend's partner or spouse is cheating on them. And
Mhm.
someone said, well, I wouldn't want to know. And I was shocked. And I said, wait, time out. I said, for the record, if I were to find out that your husband did something, I'm telling you.
Right.
She's like, but I don't want to know. And I was like, but what if you get HIV? And I said, I want a show of hands with this group. How many of you want me to keep my mouth shut if I found out something like that? And I would say fully half of them said they didn't want to know. I was floored. I was absolutely floored because I think if you're not safe, I'm supposed to protect you. I
Right.
don't understand how that works, but that gave me some insight into why people don't say it when they don't like the person you're with.
Yeah.
But my brain doesn't process that.
And I think you got to try at least once. Like I've had friends where, they're going to stick with a crappy guy. Like I have a friend going through this right now. And in
Hmm.
the beginning, I told her, I was like, I hate this for you.
Hmm.
And also, if you need to see this through to the end, I'll support you. But like, this is what I
Perfect.
see,
Perfect.
because I know if
And
I
I'll
tell
be here
her,
for you. Yeah,
right. Because I know if I tell her he sucks and I'm just saying dump him, dump him, dump him without like acknowledging her attachment to him, she's going to push me away. But I think to just not say anything and to deny your friend the dignity of that experience is the wrong thing to do.
and I'm not sure how you're friends if you do that.
Right? Like if I
You're
can't
in
trust
harm's
you to
way.
like care about like to one think I can handle the truth and two to like say something that even if I don't want to hear it is important for my safety and well-being, like are you even my friend? Like it doesn't
That's
matter, I've known you for 15 years, like you don't actually care about my safety.
that's what I'm saying. So I wonder where this goes for you. This really wasn't what I was expecting. Thank you for being so open about it. Maybe it's because you just had your therapy before we spoke, but I'm getting like so much detail about this. Um, it was not apparent, or it was not super clear to me in your Instagram and online presence that this was this personal for you, because you make it seem so fun talking about revenge. Now that I know how personal it is and that you are an attorney, is do you have any idea what this is evolving towards?
Well, I want to do comedy and stuff full time. Like that's always been
Okay.
my dream. And I'm actually taking a break from lawyering to like see if I can make a real run at this.
Ah, okay.
So I'm gonna expand the series into like onto different platforms, finding a way to through humor
Hmm.
to share kind of like the wisdom that I've learned. And like my biggest goal is to like make people feel seen and heard and understood while also laughing through whether that's stand up or like content creation stuff. And then also just like share what I've learned.
Humor as a first step for healing.
Yeah.
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 But not being afraid to sit with it. What does your family think about all this?
They're thoroughly unimpressed and uninterested. They
Uninterested.
couldn't care less. Truly, they could not care less.
As long as you got your law degree.
They're disappointed no matter what. Truly,
Really?
there's nothing I can do. I passed the
You're
bar
an
at the
attorney,
first
you're
try.
brilliant, you're gorgeous. What is the disappointment? Where's the disappointment?
That's an excellent question. They're thoroughly disappointed in everything I do. They weren't proud of me when I graduated law school, or if they were, it lasted like a week. They weren't proud of me when I passed the bar. If they were, it maybe lasted 2 weeks. I mean, and I've struggled with like some mental health stuff and like been able to, most people would say, wow, she's been through a lot and able to accomplish all of this. And all they see is that she's a failure who can't stand on her own 2 feet for an extended period of time.
I'm sorry.
Thanks.
So then where do you get your strength from?
I've kind of always had to emotionally, like my parents have never provided any sort of emotional support of any kind, and nor have my sisters. So it was just, I went through a lot of really hard things and had to go through them on my own. And it was like, I mean, you live or die, you know? And I heard a saying of like, we laugh so we don't cry. And I've always been pretty funny. And then I started doing stand up, and those are just really tough, sensitive people who are broken in a lot of ways and find a way to like laugh through it and persevere through it. And I think that's where I got a lot of this from. Of just like, there's this artist that I love, Courtney Barnett, who says like, take a broken heart and turn it into art. And so it's just like, my number one thing is you laugh so you don't cry, and like trying to be of service to others and just help other people as best I can. And I like to think that everything I've been through is so I can learn. And there's, I forget what myth it is, but there's some myth where someone like descends through all the circles of hell to like save somebody, and then they bring them all back up. And I've always thought that like my goal or like purpose on this earth is to like go through all of like the circles of hell to the bottom and like learn how to fight all the monsters, and then come back up and learn how to be friends with the monsters on my way back up, and then guide other people back and forth through it. And that's just like an innate thing that I think I've had for a long time.
What's interesting is you can clearly do comedy, but that's not what this is for you. This is mission for you. Comedy is just the icebreaker for you. It's actually not the goal, right? The goal is to actually do something and help people maybe heal or maybe be okay with the things that have happened.
Yeah, I think early on when I was doing stand up, there was another comic, an older guy, who had said like, he was very drunk at the time, so who knows what the value is, but it always stuck with me of like, your comedy is medicine. He was sort of like, you take difficult concepts and you like put them into comedy to make them easier to digest, you know? And I think it's sort of like the spoonful of sugar to help the medicine go down is like disguise. Because if I was just saying like, here are the toxic red flags, da 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 da, like those things don't really stick, and they're hard to receive. And I feel like I used to get a lot of dating advice like in my FYP and stuff, and it just made me feel inadequate. Like I was doing something wrong, and it would make me really self-critical, versus to have somebody be like, hey, I'm a fucked up mess too. Here's what I've learned, and like, let's be girls and laugh about it as friends. I think makes it much easier for people to heal stuff. But yeah, it's never been laughing to make people laugh. It was really to make people feel less alone is where it started, because I felt so alone.
I'm looking forward to seeing it all unfold.
Yeah. I have no idea what's coming next. I have absolutely no idea where I go from here at all, other than to keep making stuff and to keep hoping it resonates, and to at some point make a sustainable income from it, so that I can not even just like be rich, but it's like for the purpose of continuing to be able to do this and like give it all my time.
Well, I will say that I'm sure you would have been an amazing divorce lawyer. But I'm glad that you didn't land there, because if you did, you would have gotten enough satisfaction out of it, I think, ultimately, that you might not have found your way to this path. You know, it's true. It's like, I'm sorry that you had to go through that pain, but clearly something else is coming out of this.
Yeah.
Have you had any contact with him since?
No.
And is he aware of the revenge platform?
When I started on TikTok, I saw that he was like stalking my page every time, all the time, before the series really blew up. And then and his backup account. Um and then his weird friend Dave, who was also stalking me to keep track of stuff. So
Yeah.
I blocked them all in there. I don't really know if he can access my stuff on Instagram. I don't really care at this point. They say that like narcissists always circle back around, but so for a long time I was really holding my breath because like
Mm.
I don't want to hear from him. I don't want to know what he's up to. I don't care what he thinks, but I do feel like a lot of the healing I've done could be very quickly undone by an interaction with him. It would be very destabilizing, but I have no idea what he thinks. I don't care. I hope he doesn't see it because he's a narcissist. So he'll be like, wow, I was so important. She owes so much to me. But he's also so fucking dense. He might not even know it was about him because he thinks he's a good person. Who
Yeah.
knows? But
Well, they always tell themselves that, but he was not important. The damage and the recovery from it becomes a big part of your story, but at the end of the day, he's a footnote.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that's for sure. I like to think it was like the triggering event. God tried to teach me a lot of lessons really, really gently.
Mm.
And I refused to learn them. And so they were all sent to me in like the most aggressive, compact, explosive way that I could ever hear it. And it made me hear the message, not just messages like in dating, but also like in my career of like, I knew I wasn't meant to be a lawyer. Like God didn't make me this funny to be a lawyer,
Yeah.
you know?
100%.
And like I was really doing that to like please my parents and I wasn't living my life for myself. So I think in doing this, it really broke open a lot of stuff that needed to happen. I think it was a canon event that was meant to happen, I think. And
Mm.
I don't think that has anything to do with him. I think he was just a catalyst for like the bigger plans God had in store for me. And sorry to anyone who doesn't believe in God. Replace it with the universe or magic or something. I don't know.
Spirit guides, whatever it
Yeah.
needs to be, right? It's all the same thing. It's whatever kind of higher power makes you feel better about stuff. It's interesting the way you talk about it because a canon event, for a while I gave a keynote speech called the Ultimate Permission Slip, and I talked about um, all giving birth in the pandemic and having a near-death experience, and then coming out and realizing I needed to ask for a divorce because of the way that I was not supported in the aftermath of that trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And not to
I'm
say
so
my ex is
sorry.
a bad person, but it was one of those like wake up moments,
Mm-hmm.
right? And there's a beauty that comes in recognizing you have to be grateful for the moments that break you
Mm-hmm.
because you can no longer lie to yourself about what's not working.
Mm-hmm.
And whether you're ripped out of the situation or the situation rips you apart, you realize that the reason those situations don't work is because you're living in cognitive dissonance. When you rid yourself of the cognitive dissonance required to continue in one facet of your life, if it's intense enough, the moment that triggers it, you can wake up allergic to cognitive dissonance in every other aspect of your life, and you just simply can't abide those situations anymore. So obviously, you're going to leave the law if it wasn't really for you, right? If
Yeah.
that's where this is going. And I don't know, right? But it all makes perfect sense to me. It's like there's this collective awakening going on.
Yeah. It feels
Yeah.
really good. I mean, as long as I can find the money to sustain myself, like I plan on dedicating my life to this because it feels like such like a higher, more sacred calling than like filing briefs and like
Right.
legal research for
Right.
rich people who did a bad thing,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know? Um,
I get
so
it.
like, I mean, it feels very fated. It feels very intentional. And it's like, again, along with the me being funny, it's like, I don't think God or the universe, whoever you believe, would have put me through all of this and put me on this path and given me such a great idea that has resonated with so many people for me to fall on my face and then go back to being a lawyer. Like,
Yeah.
I think the universe has a better plan than that. And I think it makes more sense than that personally.
So, what's the one piece of advice you'd have for someone who today got taken advantage of so badly and
Yeah.
dropped so badly that they are starting to think about revenge?
That's a hard one. Let yourself ugly cry. It's okay if you don't brush your teeth. It's okay if you don't take a shower. Try to eat something, have some water, take a lot of naps. Be nice to yourself, or at the least don't be mean to yourself if you can manage it. Try not to drink too much, because that's how I ended up in a 12-step program. Um, sorry, you can cut that if that's not funny, but in my head it is. I also like the idea of making people feel more comfortable with those programs because they're pretty lit and a lot of fun, actually.
It's super healthy to go into those programs if you need them.
Yeah, and
What's wrong with
I've met some of the greatest people in my life. Like for the first time in my life, I have real community and like real people who care about me, and like it's a magical place. But that's a conversation for another day. And try to, when you get there in your own time and don't rush it, try to forgive yourself, because I know that you are a shell of your former self and you're like, I forgot who the fuck I was. I'm not the type of person who would ever let this happen. How did I get here? This person has dedicated their life to figuring out how to be really, really good at this. And it's not your fault that you're like a loving, kind person that wouldn't expect somebody to take advantage of you this way. So try to forgive yourself. And instead of wondering when it's going to stop hurting or saying like, why am I not over this yet? We were only together XYZ time or whatever. Just know it's going to feel like shit for 9 months. Just accept that and let it feel like shit for 9 months. I cried every day for 6 months, and that's okay.
I have to point out one thing that you said that I think is really powerful, which is you're saying it's not your fault, right? I think what you're failing to realize is that only because you are a better person than this person is it taking you this long. Because if you were a worse person, you would believe this was normal. The fact that you can't let it go means you don't believe that's the way that the world operates, because you don't operate that way. So actually you're doing just fine.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So you asked me for one thing and I gave a lot of things, but if I had to say one thing, if I had to say specifically one thing only, it would be this. He did not move on super fast because he didn't care about you. And he did not move on super fast because that girl is better than you or he's going to treat her better than you. He moved on super fast because he fucking hates himself and he is so miserable that he cannot sit alone in his own company and cannot stand to be alone for 5 seconds. And it was easier to start fresh than try to be a better person for you. And he's not actually going to be any better to her than he was to you.
Because he's not going to be better for anyone.
No, but it's not that you weren't worthy. It's not that he didn't love you. And it's not that she's awesome. It's that he's a piece of shit who can't stand to be by himself. And he was upset that you started to stand up for yourself. So good job. You're doing great.